same vector like flies again, they are also decomposers, meaning they feed on decaying animal or human tissues or decaying organic matters. They help to decompose the material back to the environment. So meaning in a way that it's actually a beneficial insect.
Okay.
So imagine kalau macam dunia ni tak ada lalat misalnya, so how can you ensure that all the bangkai or carcasses return back to the environment in terms of.
Assalamualaikum dan selamat datang ke episod ke-7 Play by Ear. I'm Huzaifi and this is Play by Ear. I always take this, early part of every episode to kind of reflect on what happened and everything. And I think this time around, I'd just like to mention my appreciation for all the past guests that have actually been on the show. My teeny tiny little show. Tapi itulah. So far, we've had Bomba, we've had SLE Survivor. Survivor, is that the word? That's the word. We've had somebody who handles trash in a way that I've never seen before. And today, I'm also very pleased to introduce our guest yang, again, very special, very interesting. Selamat datang, Dr. Raja Muhammad Zuha Raja Kamal Bashah.
Thank you, Haifa. Thank you so much. My name can go like forever, but just call me Dr. Zuha. Would be just simple and just more casual.
Awesome, Dr. Zuha. So, Dr. Zuha, according to dia punya email signature banner ni, adalah seorang senior lecturer untuk Forensic Science Program, Faculty of Health Sciences at UKM.
Yes.
He is also a research fellow dekat Center for Insect Systematics and Fraser's Hill Research Center, Faculty of Science and Technology.
Oh my God, where did you get that?
Our email.
Oh, email.
Yeah,
alright.
you got your signature dengan ada lalat ni kat sini kan?
I think even affiliation pun macam banyak sangat kan. Tapi I think because I tend to have like macam overlapping area in terms of doing things in UKM in terms of research and also teaching. So that's why mostly I work with Center for Insect Systematics, Faculty of Science and Technology, but my current formal affiliation will be Fakulti Sains Kesihatan. So,
Interesting. Right. So that pretty much tells us a little bit about what we're going to dive into today. It's entomology, not to be confused with etymology, because that is the study of the origin of words. So basically, asal-usul perkataan lah and how, words change throughout history and stuff. So that's etymology. But we're going into entomology here, which is
study of insects.
Insects. Yeah. Okay. Serangga
Serangga, but my area will be specific, a bit more, a niche that you said earlier. So my area will be in forensic entomology. But this is something like not uncommon among people nowadays because people have been watching like detective series, CSI and all those stuff. So jadi macam I think tak adalah macam nak kata this one is actually very different in terms of application. But I would say it is unique in its own way. And it is very challenging in terms of, let's say, handling the forensic evidence and everything. It's actually a very interesting area to explore. Yeah,
there's a lot I have in mind. And you got my list of questions. But before that, Dr. Zuha, can you just introduce yourself to us a little bit more? Like, we know all that professional stuff about you, but anything else you don't mind sharing with us?
I'm trying to make it short.
Okay.
Well, I had my first degree from UKM as well, from biomedical science in 2003. And then, I do not have any options that time because my passion was still at that time in forensic science.
I see.
But, learning from a few of our seniors and then some of our colleagues, we learned that, from biomedical science, you can learn some aspects in forensic science as well, especially in terms of like doing lab works and everything, field works, and also handling biological specimens and whatnot. And, it just kept me going. And until like my final year for my thesis, I was like it was happened that I was assigned to one of the professor, Professor Baharuddin Omar, and he was the forensic entomologist at that time. I had like different, kind of like interest whether to go to learn about entomology by itself because medical entomology perubatan is one of the orang kata apa macam bidang yang tak ramai orang minat. Because why? You know, you kena main dengan lipas, you kena main dengan nyamuk.
I mean, tak ramai orang minat is one thing, but I don't know if ramai orang tahu
Yelah,
to begin with.
Ramai orang tahu, you know, insects, but in a way that is more kind of like different perspective, you know. You know nyamuk, okay, you know lalat, but you know they just cause nuisance or they just maybe transmit diseases, but they don't understand really about how they can be so important in terms of like medical or forensics. So that's why I think learning medical entomology just like give me some basic ideas about, you know, the importance of insects, especially in medical and also in health environment. So jadi macam, okay, now you nampak macam insects ni something yang, you know, you can learn about the biology.
Yeah.
You learn about the taxonomy, meaning how to name them, how to identify them based on species, right? And then it brings me to that, you know, final year where I did my final year project in forensic entomology. So Prof Baharudin just allow me to have my own title. So I kata I nak study pasal bangkai, how the decompositions of you know, animals in secondary forest, for example.
Okay, so doctor, before that, like going into your degree, right? Like was this field of sorry, what was that faculty of sciences, and what was your degree in again?
Degree in biomedical science.
Right, biomedical science. Was that always your interest ke macam mana?
It was my interest because I was inspired by my father. It's not ayah lah, but ayah angkat.
Okay.
So basically, I used to have these foster parents. My biological families works a lot, so sometimes I just spend time with them, and then I inspired by the way that one of my meaning my apa ni ayah angkat, he works as a nurse at a government hospital. So I tengok macam he seems to be very important to people.
Okay.
So I tengok macam seronok, you know, knowing that you know you can work in that sector, and you know you can provide services to people, try to understand about diseases and how you can actually investigate diseases, how to cure them. So it's actually kind of like very intriguing and fascinating.
Okay.
But it's not until, you know, you join biomedical science, then you learn that there's a lot of subjects that you need to cover. And one of it is actually, one of them is entomology, medical entomology. And, you know, it's just like learning is kind of like experience and journey. So you wouldn't know which subject or which courses that you kind of like fell in love into until you discovered that one thing, and you have that very interesting support from your academics or perhaps from your lecturers. So from there.
So when you decided to focus on this bangkai part of things, how was that like? What do you remember from that very specific event?
I think it's kind of like challenging because, you know, people think that I kill animals for fun, which I believe that is something wrong. I think it's just like something like, you know, you're not learning to kill animal for fun. Bukannya macam you suka bunuh,
Okay,
you suka letak bangkai.
Are you telling me that you actually had to kill animals
Yes, because,
as part of your...
Yep, because this is actually the way we can actually understand the relationship between insects and...
So tak boleh cakap lah, no animals were harmed in the making of this.
No. But of course they were killed ethically, meaning kalau you nak buat kajian whatsoever, you have to apply for ethics from the ethics committee, animal ethics committee from the university. And again, it's not for fun, it's just for, you know, for research and also for study. And what most important is for you to get the information that you can apply in the real world.
Right.
So this is what we do. So this is actually some part of forensic entomology that we are doing. So from medical entomology, you learn about insects of, you know, medically important, and also you learn about insects of forensic importance.
Okay.
And when I did my final project for my thesis, undergraduate thesis, so I kind of like seeing things differently in terms of like, you know, the importance of decompositions and also insects of forensic importance.
So medical and forensic entomology, dua benda yang sangat berbeza ke?
It's actually not different so much in terms of, because sometimes you might share the same kind of like vectors. When I say vectors, meaning the insects. So,
Okay.
but maybe it has like different roles. For
Okay.
example, like I'm usually study on flies. So meaning in terms of, let's say, studying from the medical aspect. Flies can transmit diseases, meaning they can actually, carrying any pathogens to the food and
You rasa
everything,
macam
right?
masuk kelas sains.
And
Okay.
then lepas tu, the same vector like flies again, they are also decomposers, meaning they feed on decaying animal or human tissues or decaying organic matters. They help to, like decompose the material back to the environment. So meaning in a way that it's actually a beneficial insects. So
Okay.
imagine kalau macam dunia ni tak ada lalat misalnya. So how can you like, ensure that all the bangkai or carcasses, return back to the environment in terms of maybe energy and everything. So this is actually something very, interesting way on how to look at decomposition and also insects that play the roles.
I see. So is this the factor that drew you to entomology in itself and specifically forensic
That's
entomology?
most of it. Sebab time tu tak ada CSI lagi. So I
Oh,
cannot use that,
I see.
because I tengok CSI, so I suka forensic
So
entomology.
memang
It's not that bad.
self-interest, it is
It's actually
through learning
more
ke?
on self-interest plus motivation from your academic advisor.
I see.
Yeah. So this, I think we need somebody to inspire us, like
Agreed.
our academics, like our lecturers, our professors, and again that how these people try to push you to become the better of yourself, or sometimes even myself, right now I supervise students for my postgraduate students. I pun cakap I tak nak you jadi macam I nak you jadi better than me.
Aww.
So memang macam tu. So this is actually how you approach as an academics ataupun as a researcher for the
Okay.
students.
So lepas dah buat pasal once you cleared your undergraduate with your very specific
Yeah.
thesis, what was next? Like how was it like for you then? And how old were you then, if I may ask?
Agaknya bila waktu tu umur berapa tahun? Usually bila kalau you masuk first year, second year, I think about 22,
Okay.
23, something like that.
Right.
Kan? Oh my god, I'm so bad at counting my age. So
That's a good thing.
and then we cannot see the future. I even did not expect at that time that I would end up as an academician or as a lecturer, in the same exact field, because you tak tahu.
So masa buat final year project tu, masa buat that final thesis tu, it was very much like, oh, this is too.
Oh my god, I think I'm just like some other
I
kids around that
see.
age,
Untuk menepati syarat is
just
good.
like buat je janji you. Yeah, okay, finish and then look for job, right?
I see. So yeah, so then what happened next? How did you progress gradually to this?
Very interesting question. Actually, I even myself, I cannot really describe whether this is actually a plan or something like that. But I always believe that in life there are so many variables,
Okay.
meaning banyak factor that actually influence you. So just like the values might be different, kan? So maybe my factor at that time maybe influence from my advisor, Prof. Baharudin, and at the same time maybe because of I put my passion into it and then try to learn more about this area. But again, because there is very niche, so the only perhaps industry that you can actually get yourself into is the academics, right? So you have to get yourself enrolled into the university.
So it
and
was a
become
natural
lecturer.
transition lah. Would you say?
Susah nak cakap juga because I don't know how
You don't know how.
end up like that, because I think some of the facts that you didn't know about me, after my degree, I was a cadet reporter at Utusan Malaysia.
Wow, we have a journalist with here today.
Yes.
Okay.
And then I think I tak bagi tahu ramai orang lah, even few I just inform a few my students, and then
Kita kena buka archive.
itulah jangan.
What were you reporting on?
Mostly on general news, something like that.
see.
It was only for 1 year, but I think that was the best experience of my life working there, because you tend to have like this kind of like very lot of different experience. I think I hilang. It's not hilang perasaan malu. It's just like macam I was kind of like macam rasa dah tak takut sangat dengan public ke whatsoever because of that kind of training within that kind of career. You know, you just main suka hati je tanya everything kan.
You
just
kind of have to
tebak.
actually.
Yeah, that's right. So in a way that you know it build your confidence at a certain level, and in a way meaning you help yourself. But along the way, I tried to figure out whether I can still get into this, you know,
I see.
environment, meaning in
Okay.
forensic and also in entomology. And eventually, there was a course in UM, Master of Criminal Justice under the Faculty of Law. So I get myself enrolled, and I told my mom, you know, I think this is very important for me. I want to, get myself enrolled, and of course, I do have my best friend at that time, and she, you know, even motivate me to join that program. So I end up, get my masters in criminal justice in UM.
Okay.
And there was and suddenly out of nowhere there was a opening at the UKM, and I was informed by my advisor that the UKM is actually opening forensic science program.
Oh, okay.
So jadi macam I was like macam okay, so this is kind of like an opportunity for me to
When you
apply.
took the masters in what was your objective then? Like, what was the reason?
I was partly like macam okay, I told myself, let's say if I can't really get myself into this forensic through academic, maybe I just try, you know, to work as a police officer or something like that. So this is
okay.
actually another way that I can try to prove myself to work in that area. But you know, knowing me with my lifestyle and attitude, I don't think I can get myself being in a police police force. But no offense to the police force, I mean they do a lot of good job, but I don't think it suits with my personality or something like that.
Fair.
And then I applied, and then I got myself into UKM as a tutor in 2006.
Okay.
And I tried to get myself to get my PhD also in UKM, because at that time my academic advisor was kind of like, he just told me, Zuha, you just buat under me, so that I can just continue my research in forensic entomology. But I really appreciate his role as a mentor at the time. So because being a person with a family, having no background in academics or whatsoever,
Okay.
so it's something that you have to explore yourself. But I always get support from the family, meaning it's a good way that they understand my objective, my intention, what I'm trying to do and everything. So so I end up working in UKM until now, about 18 years already.
Wow, loyal.
Yeah.
Okay, and I'm aware that scuttle flies adalah your focus inside, right?
Yes.
So first of all, scuttle flies ni lalat apa? Like I tried to Google apa dalam bahasa Melayu, macam tak ada je.
Memang tak ada. Tapi itulah, I was quite surprised when you asked about scuttleflies, because I think it is something that people like macam anggap lalat ni semua sama je kan. You all look alike. So, right. So macam apa yang beza scuttleflies dengan
how many types of flies are there anyway?
I can say that there are like thousands of species.
Okay.
But they are categorized based on mostly by families, meaning this is actually we're talking about how you classify the organisms, right? And scuttleflies is one of them. So meaning it belongs to one group. We call it Foridae, meaning this is a family for scuttleflies. Tapi I don't want to go to that, very scientific details on how we name them, but looking at this family or this group alone, we can say that it's like what we know so far is about 4,000 species. Okay, and it's like the tip of an iceberg. Meaning that's the only thing that you know right now because it depends on your encounter, your sampling, your
I see.
your work on research and everything. And there are about more than 30,000 still unnamed and described. It is estimated about that around that range. Yeah.
Wow. You have a lot of work ahead of you.
Yeah, but it's not an easy task to provide them with a name. So because you have to go through a lot of because this is a small thing. Well,
Okay.
Scuttlefly, I think
Scuttle tu apa?
if you can try to look at perhaps you go to the restaurant, you go to the pastry shop, for example, and then if you see something like macam small flying insects just
Okay.
running away from that food, then that will be scuttlefly because it is actually known to scuttle, meaning dia macam berlari terhenti-henti in rapid and jerking movement. So kalau you tengok lah, it's more running than flying.
Is it like the greyish one?
The colour would be like I would say macam colour dia macam kakis brown sikit colour dia, but usually we refer to brown or yellowish. Tapi dia punya lalat ni sebenarnya size dia kecil sangat, so that's why you tak nampak, susah nak tengok. It's about 2 millimeters in size.
Damn,
And
that's so
it
small.
can goes up to about 4 to 6 millimeters. But again, human might be ingest the eggs accidentally almost every day through food. Tu yang orang kata macam
Wow.
you tak nampak. It is kind of like very important until you know dia punya role in
Right.
as a pest and also as in our context in forensic investigation. So this is something very interesting.
Okay. But why scuttleflies, Dr. Zuha? Why not ants? Why not bees? Why not?
Kenapa lah I susah-susah diri I study this kind of group, very small and very complicated to learn. So because I think first I was for my PhD,
Okay.
I was still searching for a direction at that time. I was like macam biasanya kalau dalam PhD ni you need to study about you need to find something novel in terms of research and everything, something that contribute to something, and in a way that your findings must be like the first time recorded or something like that. So you need to find a novel aspect in your research. So macam memang susah nak cari, bukan senang. Unless memang you dah because when you do research, your problem can be from your experience, from your observation, from previous study. Tapi dalam case ni memang susah sebab tak ada orang lain buat dekat Malaysia. And there was one or two studies lah, tapi itu pun a bit very surface and tak nampak sangat dia punya detail. But what I'm trying to do without any experts yang ada dekat Malaysia ni is something that very difficult. Then my advisor, my PhD advisor suggests me, Zuha, why don't you study about scuttlefly, because since no one dare enough to study about this group because it's actually very difficult, and it's I can say that the most complicated group of insects in animal kingdom, because it's actually very very small, one thing, and the most important part that makes it more difficult to study because of the sexual dimorphism. Sexual dimorphism meaning the male might be differs entirely from the female.
Okay.
So macam mana you nak associate male with its partner dengan female dia kan memang susah.
Okay.
I don't know kenapa I buat study ni kan.
Biasanya orang buat apa macam like locally speaking, what are the studies that are commonly found?
Biasanya kalau macam study about flies or insects ni orang akan study dari segi macam kepentingan tu sebagai pest, sebagai kata rosak, something like that kan. Tapi my area was focused on forensic importance, meaning how we can apply this information in forensic. Because at that time there was a publication made by my colleague, scientific publication, highlighting the first record of this scuttlefly in human death in corpse.
Okay.
Tak silap I waktu tu somewhere dekat Penang dia jumpa mayat, and mayat tu kebetulan forensic pathologist and also the entomologist at that time recovered scuttlefly. Tapi tak ada orang study lagi pasal scuttlefly, so that specimen had to be sent to University of Cambridge, UK, in order to identify them accurately. Sebab kita tak ada expert yang boleh ID that species.
Okay.
So that makes thing benda tu jadi macam penting. So okay, I take up the challenge lah. I kata okay, I akan study this group to see how I can learn the taxonomy, meaning how to learn dia punya, how to identify the species, and how to determine the importance in forensic entomology, especially in indoor or in enclosed environment, because this fly is very small, so meaning they can actually penetrate through small narrow openings and they can actually reach carcasses or cadaver ataupun mayat faster than any other insects on earth. So that's why we can say that they are very efficient as a forensic insects in concealed environment. So that's why I dah nampak dia punya macam kepentingan dia. So it is very important in forensic.
So what was your finding, if I may ask?
One of the most interesting findings was that we managed to describe at least 5 new species from that study. So and then,
like in the world?
Yes, maknanya that's the only habitat that it was found was in Malaysia. Maknanya sekarang. And it's only from our backyard in Bangi. That's how we discovered that new species, and of course we had to collaborate with the experts from University of Cambridge, Dr. Henry Disney, and this is actually kind of like a starting point for me to start to fall in love with scuttleflies, and because we can see that betul, sebab mula-mula tu I cannot see the importance because I just look at a single species that was sampled from a food leftover which I put inside the lab, and then I just tengok so apa yang menarik sangat, just like something simple, straightforward. It's not until we did some research on decomposition using animal carcass. We put rabbit carcass inside a suitcase and then left it to decompose in open environment kan.
Oh, okay, wow.
Lepas tu bila we come back after do the sampling along with my colleague undergrad students, then we start to see like this characteristic is quite different from the one that we got from the lab. And then we check another sample. This is different from that one. So you nampak there's a lot of variation in terms of morphology coming.
With variations come a lot of pening kepala.
Pening kepala lah lepas tu. And then ada satu lagi yang I was quite very macam waktu tu I tak pernah jumpa lagi. My student pun I suka waktu tu because they are very observant. Dia kata, doktor I dapat ni tapi I rasa dia bukan lalat, dia semut, because I nampak dia just crawling on the body. So I kata tak apa, you just sample and we just bring into the lab and we try to observe the characteristics. And we brought the specimen back to the lab. And to our surprise, it was a wingless scuttlefly. Maknanya scuttlefly tu dia tak ada sayap.
Kenapa dia tercedera ke dia memang?
No, because this is actually I think it can be because of the variations. Like I said, masa awal tu I can't really see this sexual dimorphism, meaning the perbezaan yang ketara between male and female. So bila I check and go through the taxonomic keys, meaning that's how you study dia punya species kan, and we found out that it's actually belong to a genus known as Polycifora. Again, I try to restrict myself.
It's all good.
Because I can like go on like forever about this thing.
No worries. We want to hear the interesting bit, so go ahead.
Right. And then it belongs to the genus Polycifora, which is known to for its female, which is known for a wingless female. Maknanya female dia tak ada sayap.
Okay.
So I was like macam kenapa lah? Macam you tanya lah, kenapa female tak ada sayap? Kenapa male ada sayap kan? And macam mana female ni boleh ada dekat bangkai sedangkan dia tak ada sayap.
Okay.
Bila kita baca and kita tengok sendiri dalam lab, baru kita nampak yang the male with wings, basically they airlift the female to the location yang ada sumber makanan and they put that female there to allow them to oviposit, meaning to allow them to lay the eggs.
Oh.
And the development happens within that particular environment.
Wow.
And for this group, that wingless scuttlefly is so small, it's smaller than the one that you usually see from the food. It's about, I can say about 0.6 millimeter.
Lagi kecil.
So okay. That I think 0.6 is about the smallest size that I've dissected.
How do you...
Yang tu kita tak pergi kat situ lagi macam mana kita ID. So it was like macam, Oh my god, I'm doing right now. Do I need to explain that?
I mean, I'm curious, so if you don't mind,
Okay. Sebab
just think of me as like a 6-year-old. Like you don't need to get quite technical, but like, because obviously this is not something that I can discuss with just anybody. So given this opportunity, I'm just gonna ask, how do you do
I
that?
should have brought some of the specimen today, just to show you how small this butterfly is. Because in order to identify them, is you can't really look directly through the microscope, or because it's actually very small.
Actually, masa I tengah macam nak memikirkan apa nak tanya kan, I was like, oh, surely this one goes through microscope. Nampak, oh, tak bukan.
Yeah, memang tengok microscope, but
Okay.
we have like two different type of microscope
Okay.
yang common lah.
Okay.
The light microscope, satu yang dissecting, usually you use for hobbies, nak baiki handphone. Ataupun nak tengok insects for
Right.
hobby everything, so you pakai dissecting. But another one is compound microscope, because
Okay.
the compound ni you akan nampak biasanya the light will go through the specimens and you can see the characteristics. So for scuttlefly you have to use the compound microscope, which usually used to check for to observe cells and something like that. For that kind of size, small kan. So biasanya kalau scuttlefly ni, dia punya the way to diagnose dia punya species is to dissect the specimen parts by parts. Meaning kalau yang size about 0.6 mm tu, you kena cabut kepala dia, you kena cabut kaki dia, dia punya bahagian abdomen dia, dia punya thorax. Kalau ada sayap, kena cabut sayap. And then you kena fix on a slide. Then you have to check it through the compound microscope, part by part, and look at the characteristic. So that's how meticulous the work is, how fragile the specimens would be
Right.
if you don't handle the specimen correctly.
How many do you like take with you at one time? Dia
Oh.
macam alamak extra hard, so then you have to use a new one ke macam mana?
It depends on the research settings. So sometimes it can be like hundreds, sometimes it can yield up to thousands. So it depends on the experimental setup. But usually, the what makes things difficult about studying scuttlefly, let's say if you discover a new species, for example, you always like, you just get one of the one representation for that particular characteristic. So biasanya kalau you nak ada satu, you nak identify new species, you need to have like macam multiple replicates
I
in order to
see.
verify whether the characteristics are consistent throughout the group kan. Tapi biasanya from our experience, memang kadang-kadang ada satu je yang with that unique characteristic. So it make things difficult for us to publish that as a new species, and sometimes it make things more difficult because the characteristic might be due to variations. Maknanya bukanlah species baru, might be a common species, but it has like extra features, maybe due to mutations or something like
Right.
that. So this is something yang macam, I think go back to your question.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, dia memang bidang ni memang menarik tu because this is very challenging environment and challenging specimens that you're handling, and it adds more challenge when you're handling a forensic specimen.
Right.
Tu yang a bit susah
So
sikit
it
tu.
started from that particular incident in Penang.
Yes,
And
from my colleagues from published that paper, and we look at the importance, and so we try to set that experiment and try to see whether we can actually study the variations of species on the carcasses. So kita letaklah bangkai tu dalam suitcase, kita letak bangkai tu dalam portable cabin, dalam waste bin, ada yang tanam. I don't know if you have any idea, just add to the list. Maybe we can try.
Okay, I'll think of something.
Kan,
But like, when was the defining moment? Because throughout that, you also, it's seemingly like kat sini macam you also were experiencing that, what am I doing here kind of thing, right? But when was the defining moment that you're like, okay, you know what? This is my calling in life. This is the path that I shall pursue, and like really go.
I think that one kind of like a bit subjective.
Okay.
Because something, it sometimes my concept of teaching, especially when you deal with a lot of students, especially for postgraduate students, you try to become like a master lah. Maknanya you kena teach all the students everything. But I see the purpose when people starting to learn that knowledge from me, because I think knowledge is universal kan. You tak boleh macam the code. You can't really like macam saying like, oh, because I know this area, so kenapa I nak tolong orang lain, so it's supposed to be exclusively for me. Tapi it is actually a responsibility, meaning like macam bila I see how postgraduate students or students that willing to enroll to the course and try to learn this field from me. So I think it's a part of obligation for me just to keep on like going and try to help the students to provide them with a pathway on what to study about this group.
Spoken like a true cikgu, like a real
ke?
mentor, and somebody who's so like, wow, inspirational. And
Thank you so much. But I think it's not. I think it goes to. It's kind of like a bless. To have like so many students around you.
Aww.
Because bila you rasa like macam people seems like kind of like very interested to know about what you do and get inspired by your work and also your research. You make things like you have to do a bit more better in the future so that you can keep on like going giving knowledge to the people and everything like that. But of course you need to try something new most of the time.
But how was your family's reaction? Like they understand that you're studying Scuttle,
Yeah.
kan? So
It was because I think when this is a funny thing because I always told my student because like in every lecture at the beginning of lecture I need to inform them the I need to explain or define this career
okay.
because when I said to my let's say if I'm dealing with police for example when I introduce myself as a academics or perhaps as a forensic entomologist. So when they heard like, oh you pakai kaji serangga, so maybe apa yang dia nampak tu, or somebody yang maybe bawa hand net and carry on catching butterflies, something like that kan.
Okay.
Sebab you dengar macam oh serangga pakai serangga, so memang maybe you punya kerja is like macam like that lah. So like
this image, this visual
yeah,
of pakai kaji serangga.
Betul. And then kalau I bagi tahu my family tu, I'm doing forensic entomology as my research kan. Dia kata oh forensic. Oh, so you must be like collecting specimen with the police or pergi crime scene macam dalam movie lah. The fact that it's not like that. So it's just like macam you spend most of the time in front of a computer or in front of the microscope examining specimens and from time to time you collect specimens from the field. That's the nature of your job lah basically.
Field tu kat mana usually?
My area focus more on urban area. So banyak I collect tu kalau sekarang ni I think dari segi abundance of species you tak perlu nak pergi jauh because we're staying in UK and Bangi. There's a lot of still undiscovered species dekat kawasan yang kita duduk sekarang ni.
Sebab tak ada orang study it.
Yes, because people always think that bila kawasan urban you have like less variations of species. Sebab urban you have like people manipulating the environment everything semua tu kan. So jadi macam orang nampak macam oh maybe urban ni nothing to study, better you pergi dekat hutan study. Of course kalau ada like trip ataupun ada expedition we would like to go and try to collect some of the sample. Tapi I can see that even in urban environment or semi-urban environment there's a lot of undiscovered insects or insects that actually yet to be described because they kind of like have this kind of purpose that help to macam provide ecosystem services. Like for example like flies.
Okay.
So they basically a decomposer.
Right.
Majority of flies are decomposer, meaning they help to decompose organic matter, organic waste. And also there will be some other group I think many group of insects that tends to relate with human environment are decomposers. So that's why bila kita tahu that this kind of association between insects and human, especially in urban areas, so there are possibilities that we can actually collect different species, new species, for example. So this is actually why I think you can look at urban area as one of the potential area to study.
Okay, so when you tell your family that you do this,
yalah betul lah.
Are they like
You're okay.
They're cool with it.
Tak adalah macam oh you have to kena mandi bunga whatever, tak adalah. no such things lah. Because there are some things that I think because I think what I like the most when telling my family about what I'm doing for research, especially my kids, they tend to rasa macam seronok, because I share with them about insects and everything, and I show them the importance of insects, especially in forensic case, and it keeps like them to maybe dia rasa macam seronok lah study pasal insects ni, and then some of them collect caterpillars, ada yang collect grasshoppers,
Wow.
because they tend to like tengok I punya bidang tu something like macam can inspire them to do something as a hobby.
I see.
But dia tak tahu yang I punya kerja penat duduk dekat lab pergi dekat field tu kan. But I think as long as you have that kind of admiration for your own kids, I think that's enough already. I tak payah macam nak pergi jauh-jauh, nak make other people proud or whatsoever. So you have like your family, especially your kids, admire your work. I think that's enough for me.
Oh, beautiful, beautiful. Okay, but also flies generally do not have a very good reputation, like that.
Yeah.
People are like, oh, flies dirty.
Betul.
Flies, ew, gross, right? So, what have you discovered going into, what you've gone into?
Itulah.
Is it true? Like,
betul. I
we?
think if I ask you, maybe we ask the general public kan, what is your top 10 favorite animal kan? You won't see at least memang fly takkan ada dalam list lah.
No.
Or perhaps insects won't be any of the top 10 list kan?
Yeah, because a lot of people got phobia with insects.
I think because this is one thing, people might have like kind of like misconceptions about flies, especially insects, insects especially flies, because macam flies ni dia kita tahu basically they are a nuisance, and some flies ada yang boleh macam carry diseases, and ada juga yang flies yang macam apa ni maybe cause harm to human. Maybe they can bite humans, something like that.
Wait, flies can bite?
Ada some group of flies yang boleh bite.
New fear unlocked.
But it's not that common, the one that you selalu jumpa tu lah. So this is actually because some flies tu, basically majority of the flies, dia punya mouth, they are not modified to bite actually. So there's only a few that actually bites.
Okay.
And
thanks for telling me very.
That's why I think kalau orang ramai tak tahu yang lalat dengan nyamuk pun sebenarnya they belong to the same group, order Diptera. So maknanya memang macam nyamuk ni dia dalam kumpulan yang lalat yang a bit more primitive from satu branch. Kalau macam lalat yang selalu nampak kan, badan dia yang macam gemuk-gemuk, compact, cute tu kan. So that one is
I've never used cute to describe lalat.
That one is another group. That one is another group yang a bit more, kata apa ni, it's not primitive group. So maknanya dia punya mulut, dia punya badan semua dah mutated for millions of years.
I see.
So that's why dia punya this behavior pun influenced by dia punya characteristics. So that's why I think humans not supposed to feel worried about flies, but they need to worry if they transmit diseases, or perhaps they can cause like a condition like kita panggil myiasis. Myiasis ni maknanya infestations of live larvae. Infestations of maggots in living animal or human, in live animal or humans. So that situation can cause maybe certain bad conditions to human lah. Tapi biasanya that one usually happens in a situation where maybe kalau orang tu dia tak jaga kebersihan ke, ataupun they lack of capability to fend off the insect, something like that lah. So basically overall yes, people do have these kind of misconceptions about the insects, especially flies, because the role they carry through media, through news, through reports. Like for example, we're talking about macam you tahu langau, kita panggil langau, lalat yang kala hijau, metallic yang selalu jumpa kat sampah.
Okay.
Kan? So basically this langau for a particular species like the Crassomaya megacephala, also known as Oriental latrine fly, ataupun kalau dalam bahasa Melayu dia lalat tandas.
Oh, okay.
Timur. because Oriental always refer to Timur kan, lalat tandas Timur, but
Tandas?
lalat tandas because it always found dekat kawasan latrine yang because it's
Okay.
actually always associated with feces, so basically the same lalat basically can also be important in forensic entomology because they can be used as reference to indicate the time of death. And also, this fly can also be a potential pollinator. Sama juga because people have been discovering like pollen from the abdomen of this fly because the role they carry throughout like macam mango farm, something like that. So,
I
this
see.
you have like
I
different
didn't know
role.
that.
Yeah, that's the thing because we always think that flies, like you said, people always think
Has
consider as a pest, something like that. But of course, at certain degree, we have to make sure that they are not, too overpopulated or something like that. They are not really like taking over your
Yep.
household
But to
environment.
like make enemies, like as in like to feel the need to eradicate them from the face of the earth is not.
Not to that extent, but I think the right word might be just to appreciate the presence. They
Okay.
serve a purpose.
They serve a purpose,
So they
yeah.
serve a purpose. So that's why I think.
So you have this newfound appreciation through your studies lah. That probably most people
Yes,
don't
I
yet
think
have.
yeah, I think we do appreciate the presence of insects. I think I have to inform you that in the beginning, as a kid, I don't think I like insects that much. Not even as a hobby or something like that. Like because
But
it's
you weren't
something that
scared of them?
I was kind of like scared of insects in the beginning. Like seeing even like a beetle it scares me off. Like
And yet
with
here you
that
are.
thorny legs, and then you
Yeah.
see with the look with that characteristic, that it can cause harm to you because you believe it that way. So but in a way that when you learn about the anatomy, you learn about morphology, and then you learn about the functions of this anatomy, so you don't worry that much about the characteristics anymore. But of course, at some instances you should be worried if you encounter any harmful insects like
Like,
bees or wasp, right?
okay.
So this makes you more knowledgeable in terms of to know their behavior and how they can be related with their own bodily function. So penting lah maknanya at one part they can cause harm to human, but at the same time you need to understand, you need to appreciate their presence.
Okay.
So
Maksudnya setiap kejadian tu ada peranan masing-masing lah.
yes,
Whether or not others perceive them, in a good light ataupun in a bad.
betul
Yeah.
betul.
But at the end of the day, all of us.
That's right. That's why kita. I was the council member for. I am currently the council member for the Entomological Society Malaysia. And basically, our role is to disseminate correct information regarding insects to the public.
Okay.
Itu yang penting.
Correct information, right?
Sebab ada macam contoh macam bidang forensic entomology kan. I came across previously a poster, about forensic entomology, and the poster portrays butterfly as insects of forensic importance, which is not really accurate in a way
Okay.
that maybe I don't know, maybe this seems to be like think all insect might share the same importance,
Okay,
so
but
that's why.
no, that's not
Then
the case.
then we have to inform this is not the right group of insects, in forensic entomology. Simple forensic entomology flies, right? So
So in forensic entomology, apa lagi besides flies?
the of course fly will be number one.
Okay.
Let's say memang that's the best indicator to indicate the time of death because you can actually age them. You boleh tentukan usia serangga based on the stage of the insects, stage of the flies, and also you can age them based on the size, especially if you refer to the maggots or the larva. That will be the best indicator and also the most abundant indicator in forensic cases. The secondary group might be beetles,
Okay.
but the importance is not as much as fly because especially in indoor setting or in urban area, you can hardly get any beetles attracted to the human body. So that's why we usually focus on flies.
I see.
But regardless, if there's any beetles that we recovered from human body, of course, we will study the characteristics and also see whether it can contribute to the findings of the investigation. So maknanya macam yalah, beside I think predominantly is flies. Memang tak boleh nak
So
nak
flies
memang
is
flies
like
lah.
the major.
Yeah, yes, that's the major group of insects you boleh jumpa pada mayat ataupun bangkai. And it might be in specific environment. Maybe kalau specific environment, contohnya katakan kalau dalam keadaan yang betul-betul conceal, atau maybe in environment only permit a certain group of insects other than flies. So there might be you can use flies, insects other than flies as indicator.
So in a forensic case, like you would be called to come and sample these insects. Can you tell that process? Because
this is another perceptions like my parents.
So like that's what I have.
Semua orang fikir macam bila you sebut forensic entomology mesti you pergi see, collect sample, everything semua tu. Well, I think we must be very clear about the procedure in terms of who's supposed to collect the specimens and who can collect the specimens, because the only person that can collect samples related to death cases right now, according to law, is the forensic pathologist. Okay, and for example, like the CSI officer, they also can collect the specimens collected from the human body. But usually, when it comes to death, the investigation will fall under the purview of the forensic pathologist. Maknanya menjadi tanggungjawab pakar patologi forensik di hospital, di mortuary ataupun di rumah mayat untuk lead the investigation, death investigation. So in this particular condition, usually the pathologist will assess the body, and he will try to determine whether there are some extra works need to be done in order to estimate the time of death. So the best biological indicator that might have at that time, perhaps the insects, the maggots kan. So usually the forensic pathologist will collect the specimen from the human body and send it to the forensic entomologist to determine the age of the insects and also the species of the insects.
How do they send it?
Okay.
Like all I have in my head right now is post laju, but I don't think.
No. Biasanya yang akan do the transportation of the evidence, exhibit materials, usually conducted by the investigating officer. So biasanya bila I dapat call from an IO from the police, so maknanya you have to get ready that somebody will be sending you packages of insects or maggots. So itu pun challenging juga sebab kadang-kadang this is what makes things different forensic entomology from other areas in forensic science, because this is the only area that you handle living specimens, live specimens. So maknanya
so
macam
they're still alive
when
you
they're
get
still
them?
alive. So because it helps us to facilitate the species identification, because macam maggot, dia punya characteristics to identify the species is very limited, and especially those without any previous records. So maknanya macam you tak ada reference that you can use to ID the species. So what we normally do, we get the live specimen and we rear the specimens in the lab until adult stage, which will give us the conclusive characteristics to help us with this identification.
So you have to jaga more.
Memang kena bela lah, kena bagi makan, bagi minum.
Dia makan apa?
So memang macam tu dekat dalam lab. So dia live specimen. Dia makan apa? Well, dia makan apa yang usually they eat from the body. So contohnya, biasanya kalau always human body parts will be the best supply lah, tapi of course kita tak akan ada.
Okay, good to know.
Of course kita tak akan minta sikit, doktor boleh bagi some human flesh for us to gather. Tak ada macam tu. So biasanya kita akan gunakan the rearing medium tu, biasanya kita pakai animal organs kan, macam yang paling common kita guna like beef liver, hati lembu. And then we keep the specimens in growth chamber dalam like incubator, so that it won't be contaminated with other insects, and we rear them until they become an adult. So bila dah jadi adult, kita identify the punya species. So then we get the information about the species.
I see.
This is actually basically
so how long does that take?
procedure.
Sounds like
It
Sounds lama.
depends because the life cycle of insects, especially like blowflies, flies, they pretty much, I think, entirely depend on temperature. So if you use the right temperature, then you might have like a very optimal growth for that particular group of insects. So you need to choose according to the previous studies or perhaps to your lab,
Macam
recommendation.
Scuttleflies ni.
Scuttlefly contoh lah. I think kalau I ambil satu scuttlefly, let's say I refer to a single species, for example the Megacia scalaris. So the age for the larvae, usually the larvae took about 3 to 4 days to
Okay.
develop biasanya. So by day 4, usually larva ni dah start nak jadi pupa. Let's say that one maybe about at 30 degree temperature, 30 degree Celsius temperature. And bila dia dah jadi pupa, dah jadi kepompong, so it will take about 7 to 8 days for them to emerge to new adult.
I see.
So this is actually dia punya, orang kata, jangka masa dia. But it may be vary according to what temperature you use.
I see.
So let's say katakan kalau you pakai temperature yang lebih rendah misalnya, so the development will be a bit slower.
Okay.
And then it take longer for them to maybe become an adult. So kalau you nak cepat, you tinggikan sikit temperature, but you cannot go across the threshold.
Right.
Otherwise they will die.
Right.
So you kena tahulah.
Tapi bila
the
okay,
threshold dia.
bila dia dah besar, how do you feel? Tak ada attachment ke?
Fortunately not. Lega kan, tak rasa macam sedih ke apa kan. Tapi ada macam my student, bila bela tu dia dah rasa macam attached
Oh
kan.
my gosh.
Dia dah macam tak boleh let go. Kata you punya research dah habis, go back, tak payah masuk lab. Tapi ada juga yang still feel attached because
But it's like it's such a tiny.
yeah, because they rear them from from the stage where you consider macam baby, you kecil, you bagi makan, you bela kan, you tengok under microscope, you observe daily kan. But I don't know lah, we're talking about maggots.
Yeah.
But again, it is kind of like when we do the rearing, we're talking about like mass rearing, maknanya bukan macam kita bela macam seekor, dua
I
ekor,
see.
but we're talking about like hundreds of maggots at one time. So that's why banyak sampel yang kita guna.
Does it smell? Is it like a certain type of smell? I'm wondering.
You know what? Kalau nak describe, I think I did make some survey asking my student how would you describe the smell, especially because the body, like when the body decompose, it will go through like several stages. And usually the most observable stages, there are 5 observable stages. Peringkat fresh biasanya tak ada bau lagi.
Okay.
Dia maknanya bangkai tu nampak segar, as in like macam dia still hidup tapi maybe dia tengah baring kan.
Okay.
And then the second stage will be meaning bloating, kembung.
Okay.
Peringkat kembung ni usually because of all the intestinal bacteria inside the abdomen, they cause this produce the massive gas, and because of that some people can start to detect the smell. Macam you duduk kat rumah lah, macam ada bau something, macam bau bangkai kan. So maknanya that's the onset where the body start to decompose or decay. And then the third stage will be the active decomposition stage. The active stage is whereby the body start to, how I put it, dia bukan macam explode, tapi dia macam open to environment lah. Maknanya bangkai tu daripada kembung, it start to purge and open, something like that. Become macam tu lah. And then this is when you can see there's a masses of larvae surrounding the body.
This is where they come.
This is where maybe some different wave of insects will come and further accelerate the decomposition of the body. And the next stage, the fourth stage, will be the post-decay stage. Yang ni I selalu suka buat survey because people tahu bau bangkai macam mana kan. Tapi yang the post-decay stage ni biasanya the insects tend to be like dah makin kurang. Many of the insects already dispersed to the environment. Maybe dah tukar jadi pupa, whatever. There might be some few leftovers on the body. And I tanya my student, you bau apa? Can you describe? Sebab I selalu dalam lecture I kata bau dia macam bau cheesy because it's like macam ni. And then ada yang kata bau hanyir. Ada yang cakap macam bau belacan. So so that's why because even that.
Oh no, kejap lagi kalau I bau belacan, I'm gonna be like reminded, is this how it smells?
Because it's actually fermented punya condition.
I see.
So because of that, fermentation, it causes this kind of smell. So it's actually kind of like strong. And the last stage, the final stage will be the dry decay or skeletal remains. So masa tu dah tak ada banyak insect whatsoever. Even bau pun almost like macam gone, tak ada bau dah. So that stage usually kata apa ni, dah tinggal peringkat tulang. So usually in forensic entomology, the crucial part usually during the bloating to the active decay. Waktu post decay tu agak susah sikit nak tentukan postmortem interval tu because of the flies might already dispersed to maybe buried themselves into the soil, maybe hidden somewhere within the folding of the clothing. So jadi kadang-kadang investigator tend to left out this maybe the oldest specimen yang sepatutnya guna sebagai reference. So that's why we have to learn about the decomposition. So that's why studying about the carcasses as an decomposition model is important.
When you say decompose, right? What exactly are the insects doing? Are they like taking a bite of the body and just
They consume the body. They consume the decaying flesh.
I see.
Yeah. So basically that is their food. Maknanya dia makan. Okay. So
in
that's why,
like tiny bits lah.
but we're talking about masses of larvae, meaning thousands of maggots actually feeding the carcass at the same time.
I see.
So when looking at this, decomposition, so you might be wondering like, how long does it take for the body to decompose? And what are the factors from the environment that influence the decomposition? So all this information can be taken into account to determine the age of the body and give us, what we call it, the post-mortem interval. So the police will know, and also the forensic pathologist will learn how old, how long the body has been exposed to the environment.
So usually these cases would be like murder cases lah.
Tak juga.
Maybe,
Kadang-kadang ada kematian mengejut, natural death pun ada.
Okay.
Especially kalau macam dalam case yang like a single occupant living in a house, a recluse. And then memang it's not necessarily linked to criminal cases, but there were some, tapi tak semua related to murder. But again, some pattern of insects on the body, sometimes it can provide clues to how the deceased might have died. So kadang-kadang kita gunakan this information, this kind of
Any particular case yang macam because of the insect, it's like mystery solved.
yang tu nak ikutkan so far from my experience, in a way tak ada yang kata macam mystery solved whatsoever, but it cause like macam more questions ada.
Okay.
Itu ada because kita tahu like this behavior of flies is very specific. For example, like there was a case from southern Malaysia. A body of a young girl was found. She was murdered, and she was kidnapped and murdered and placed in a kind of like abandoned building. And then because of that, her body was found decomposed, and the forensic pathologist managed to recover some specimens from the body. And to our surprise, when we examined the specimen, it belongs to these two group of insects, which were known to inhabit concealed environment, tempat yang tertutup. So maknanya macam bangkai tu mayat tu mungkin diletakkan dalam tempat yang tertutup. So that's why serangga kita jumpa pun serangga yang konsisten dengan tempat yang tertutup. Tapi the environment where the body was found was kind of in open environment. So which this kind of situation where some insects might be specific to a certain environment can provide us with some clues whether the body might have been, transported from one location to another. So, things can go differently if you look at the insect specimens and know the behavior, and it seems like to get from the case history or from the finding that the body was not consistent with the information that you have. So, dalam case macam ni memang akan menimbulkan banyak persoalan lah.
So this is why we need experts like you, because to people like us, it's just insects, just insects, right?
Yeah,
And
just
then,
insects. Tapi in any investigation, it's just not the forensic. Forensic entomologists won't work alone. Meaning you have to communicate with the investigating officer. You need to communicate, especially with these forensic pathologists, because you need to ensure that there was a kind of like integrity with the evidence. Meaning the sample must be representative collected from the human body. You cannot have like sample yang macam maybe not relevant directly with the case, or perhaps it's not consistent with the conditions of the body. So memang it's quite a challenging process lah.
wow. Okay. Yeah, you go through all those these are serious stuff, right?
Yeah.
It's literally life and death kind of thing. So how do you view, life and death now that you've gone through what you did, your understanding of
Yeah.
yeah,
Itulah. Maksud you understanding
in decompositions and how bodies change and how nature responds to that kind. So like ada ke macam apa like how sometimes people are like, oh, because of this dia lebih, I don't know, spiritual ke apa, right?
my God,
Or
that's
maybe just
like a very heavy
yeah,
question.
just how you view life itself lah.
Okay, right. That's a very interesting question. It's a heavy question. Maybe I think nak jawab. It's actually very interesting. Very interesting question indeed. No, because the thing about when you study decomposition and you handle the actual case involving human death, it seems like it gives you kind of like very different perspective. Seems like memang you see bangkai as a bangkai or corpses as a corpses, right? So you see like that's the end of it.
Okay.
But when we do the decomposition study, for example, we see that like life kind of like blooms out of nowhere, and then it's not only limited to insects. There are so many like different communities of biological organism living in the same environment. So we're talking not only maybe we're not talking only on insects. Like for example, if the body already gone to skeletal stage hingga tulang, tak ada apa-apa, but there's still evidence that you can look for which actually referring to the life that actually happens after the death of that person or animal. So maknanya macam maybe you boleh tengok pada fungi, tengok pada fungus, community fungus yang ada pada bangkai, and to see whether you can identify them as a species and try to see whether they can be used as evidence in death investigation. Ada juga yang tengok some other we need some other experts, for example like forensic anthropologists that can look at the bone skeletons and to see whether they can age them, identify them based on male or female, and try to see this information whether it fits with the investigation. So this is actually a very continuous process. It's a discrete but very continuous process. Maknanya macam it won't stop because there are so many information that you can get from this particular death environment. So that's why I think if taking a quote like death is what gives life a meaning, something like that.
Wow.
So this is actually very relevant to this situation lah.
Yeah.
Because you tengok bangkai tu dah mati, but there's a life surrounding it. We're not talking about the people, the living people who actually handling the case or whatsoever, but we're talking about all other organisms that actually surrounding the death environment.
How do you take that in? Especially like for us.
But spiritually,
yeah, sure, okay, sure. If you are willing to share.
but spiritually, maybe maybe it's something that I would not prefer to discuss with the general society at the time being.
Okay, fair.
Yeah, but I think we need to look at from a broader perspective. Meaning you need to look at not only from the scientific, but to see this is actually what happens to all of you after death. This is what happens to you and to me after death.
Does that bother you? Like, I know we're all gonna have to go through it.
Yeah,
Tapi just because you have hands-on experience and it's
no, that's what life is. So meaning at one time we will be expired and return back to the environment. So this is how we seems to be like being returned back to an environment as a form of energy.
Wow.
So this is actually how life is.
Right. Damn.
Kan?
Okay. Yeah, you're right. That is a heavy question. Okay, so like on a regular basis when you do see insects, right? As somebody who studies insects, do you get a bit more distracted and fascinated to kind of just like or are you just like whatever?
It depends on the occasion lah, on the
Okay.
situation. But sometimes, sebab being entomologist at home, if there's any invasions of insects happens at home, so I will be the first that you need to be consulted with to see whether they're dangerous or not.
Okay.
Okay. So if it's safe, okay, all right, don't need to worry. You don't need to take a swat or anything or aerosol or anything. So that's something that you have to be alert with the environment, and although your knowledge in entomology will help that. But let's say in terms of curiosity, of course, when if I come across any insects, even, invading my own space, like my workplace or whatsoever, so we have to check whether it's actually can cause further harm to the
Okay.
environment, or it's actually just a safe group of insects. So it actually goes back to your knowledge and skill to identify them.
Yeah. I don't think. I mean, I would see insects as just like,
Yelah, biasa
I
macam tu.
tak adalah fikir bahaya ke tak.
Tapi tak lah, macam tak adalah nampak nyamuk nak tangkap nak ID, tak ada. But it's not like that. It's just like macam maybe kalau something that caught your eyes, something like macam we tak pernah nampak this caterpillar or butterfly. So maybe you just find out, you just like collect. Because at home memang ada my kids, my daughter Hani memang dia suka collect caterpillar and rear them to butterfly.
Aww.
So and then and because of that, I see like macam I think, oh, okay, that's good thing, meaning it's a good thing that somebody in the house know about insects and can guide these people, how to treat them, appreciate them.
You taught them well. Okay. I think we've covered quite a lot, but I also want to ask you, like, what would be your advice to those who may be considering, contemplating, kan, adakah entomology ataupun specifically forensic entomology is for them?
That's another. I think that's the second tough question.
Okay.
Because I'm trying to be realistic.
Fair.
We need to give like the right advice.
I respect that. Yeah.
Because we're not trying to like saying that, oh, you have like there's a good future in whatever you learn from the university or whatever, because you couldn't expect whatever comes later after you finish your graduation. But the thing is that like the area like forensic entomology is a very niche area, and let's say if you focus on a certain group of insects, for example, in my case I'm studying on scuttleflies, so it makes things more unique. It's a good thing that you can cover the niche area, but it makes the market seems to be very narrow. So meaning you couldn't find any place that can fit you with that skills. Maybe the only the only place that I can think of, maybe another university or perhaps another research institution. But we have to be very focused and objective on what you want to do, because like academic is a very closed market. So meaning you're not having like open advertisement for those who wants to join as an academician. So it comes based on maybe by certain occasions, like new programs actually opening and new position available for the lecturers or something like that. But for those who like to pursue academics, they need to be very focused, and they need to enroll themselves into a master's degree or PhD in order to gain their specific knowledge or gain their own niche. So that's why I told my PhD student, you cannot be the same person like me, or you cannot have the same set of skills like me. You need to have something better. So that's how you master certain level from your advisor. So my advice, you need to define which area of entomology that you want to go, because entomology is actually very broad. So you can't really go to very niche, because the market will be so narrow and you're going to be very limited. If you want to go to the broader segment, like maybe in pest control industry, so there might be a lot of potential business opportunities and also opening. So again, it depends on which scope of entomology that we wish to enroll. But nowadays, I don't think having interest and passion will really helps a lot
Okay.
in terms of securing your career, because for me career is evolving. So I might not be a lecturer one day.
Right.
Because
I was just gonna ask.
yeah.
Like, what does the future hold for Dr. Zuha?
Difficult to say because like I said, life is so many of variables. There's a lot of factors that can influence your decision. Like for me, what makes things might be different in the future is, of course, we're talking about AI now. How AI can shape different landscape about learning, and it goes same to entomology. So maybe in the future you don't need entomologists to identify species of insects. You can just describe the characteristic of insects, and the machine will just give you the name of the insect at certain confidence level. So this is something that changed the landscape of this environment. But for me, I think we need to keep on learning something new that can be considered contemporary, and also try to figure out whether you can apply your knowledge, your previous knowledge in that particular new area. So itulah, memang kalau you tanya I next nak buat apa kan, I tak boleh bagi tahu.
Oh, okay.
But something I think yeah lah, I think of course for my student I akan share lah. Maknanya macam I bagi tahu lah apa yang I intend to explore, because biasanya academic like macam PhD holder, you can't really do the same thing over and over again. So for me, I dah this year it's actually dah 10 tahun I graduate as a PhD. So maknanya it's time for me to explore something new. So sometimes I dah start macam ada orang kata apa ni, okay, why don't you learn this as a new field and use your current knowledge and also your skill and you apply that into that particular field. So it's something interesting lah.
Alright.
Maybe jadi film director ke, writing screenplay ke, buat something screenplay about insect invasion ke, something like that.
Right, like how insects can be a villain tapi sebenarnya dia superhero kan?
Why don't you buat benda macam tu kan, lagi seronok, menarik sikit
And you can provide your very factual scientific input so that it's consistent and not just merepek.
Betul
kan?
So you have the knowledge on how to get all the information right.
Right. Okay.
What makes a good student differ from another is to know what things to Google, right?
Fair.
Betul kan?
Betul. And know how to like really make it your own. Okay. Last question of the day.
Yep.
Is there a message or a specific takeaway that you like the listeners out there to, remember about your journey, or maybe your findings that you've been so kind to share, especially on the importance of insects in our daily lives lah.
Okay,
because I would never really.
Kan, so itulah. I think I shared maybe the knowledge is actually very huge. So what I shared today maybe tak sampai 1% pun from the knowledge that we
itulah. Time. We don't have time.
Betul kan? So but I think my advice for, I don't know, kalau untuk general audience lah, dari segi macam insects, it is not harmful for you to learn and get some knowledge about insects, and try to learn something new every day. Maybe if not insects, some other things. Always try to get yourself with a new extra set of skills, extra new set of knowledge, especially from reading. I selalu bagi nasihat, especially dekat my students lah. Because I think the I don't know, maybe I'm not that old kan, tak tua sangat kan.
Tak.
So
very young. I don't even know why you mentioned old.
I selalu beritahu macam, I think apart from doing my work and apart from attending concert ke, pergi tengok movie ke, chilling with Netflix or whatever, I like to read. So maknanya at least one day kalau you dapat cover satu page pun cukup, because it's quite difficult to find people that you can discuss with someone that actually read the same thing as what you read kan. So jadi macam for me kalau I baca contohnya I suka baca fiction, non-fiction. So bila I bagi tahu because I suka baca fiction because it's how you can start to imagine things kan. So you baca tu you start to imagine the actors in the books and everything. Semua tu kalau you baca non-fiction you get like very specific set of knowledge kan. So this is what I always advise people read a lot. If let's say if you want to know about insects, you read about insects, and by reading you will get the kind of like different perspective on how you think. Sebab all my knowledge usually mostly comes from book. So itu je lah. I think keep on reading.
Keep on reading. Reading through the phone, like social media.
Boleh, apa boleh. But if you read books, you know, I don't know, maybe I klasik sikit in a way that kita suka flapping buku kan, conteng-conteng dekat buku.
I see.
Even kalau baca buku fiction ke whatsoever, I just you know cross many interesting quotes ke itu semua tu kan.
Wow, you annotate your readings.
Buat juga sebab I think it's very interesting. Some of like life wisdom and guidance come from books. Sometimes you will be surprised that even some good wisdom comes from fiction book. So interesting. Tapi sekarang susah nak cari yang maybe people like kalau macam orang yang bekerja maybe susah nak cari masa nak baca kan, ataupun mereka yang student for example, they have so many things to revise on, so you don't have any time to read. But just bagi tahu, just at least one page a day pun dah cukup dah. Tak boleh one page, half a page tak boleh. Tak boleh half a page, one paragraph. Okay. So at least you just read.
Right.
So it is very important for you to read. You not only you get knowledge, but you get like different way of thinking and also perspective. Itu penting.
Awesome. Okay, thank you for that nudge. Yeah, I know that I should complete my reading list. It's almost the end of the year and it's, you know, it's not really moving.
You know.
But yeah, so I think that concludes our episode this time around. Thank you so much, Dr. Zuha.
My pleasure.
Learned a lot, and I wish you all the best in
Thank you so much.
Whatever you decide to do now and next and so on. So thank you, and till next time, bye bye.